Right, it is the 6th day of the month of February 2025. Welcome to it. You are tuning into the NewsDesk, the special broadcast of the 2025 SoNA debate that we are seeing, rather the SoNA address that we are seeing that the president is currently addressing, and that started at around before 7 o'clock, where he was literally addressing the country on the plans, and he is still currently addressing the country on those plans, but plenty on the go on today's show as we asking the question as the country. The big question is, did the address rather bring the real change, or was it just another political performance? In our episode today, we are definitely going to be showing that and definitely going through that and trying to make sense of everything that is SoNA 2025. I am going to be joined by our resident political analyst Tepo King Mazola. He'll be here with me as we try to give you an analysis of the 2025 SoNA debate that is still continuing right now. Another thing that we are going to be bringing you is definitely the red carpet action, as our lifestyle and entertainment editor Samukelo Makamu is going to be joining us to give us a sense of what is happening and also a closer look at the fashion fair of SoNA 2025. Who showed up, who wore what? We're definitely going to be bringing you those details and more right here on television, where we inform, impact, and inspire you. Not forgetting again that we are going to be going behind the big stories that have transpired even throughout the day, giving a sense of all the breaking news, and of course getting your fresh views on everything that has been making news, everything that has been transpiring today. Of course, we're looking at Zuma's legal battles that continues to go into court, and again looking at the SoNA 2025, not forgetting also tensions across the US and Africa still arising, as Marco Rubio has stuck out a statement on social media to talk about the fact that he will not be attending the G20 summit that is going to be happening in South Africa, Johannesburg, in a few weeks to come here. So we are going to be tackling a whole lot of that. But before we get into it, let's talk about what the SoNA is all about, right? SoNA means, what does it mean for South Africa? And the theme for 2025 is a nation that works for all, right? Sounds promising, but will it be translated into action? Will we see these policies be put into actions, these policies driving a whole lot of the country and making sure that there is big economic recovery? Because a lot of people are looking at the fact that we are looking at this to find that is there better economic reform to make sure that there is better in employment, job opportunities that are created for South Africans, especially young people, as we see that the unemployment rate continues to go on a high note. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to tackle critical issues including economic growth, service delivery, crime, unemployment, and the future of major policies such as the NHI, the Bella Bill, and the Land Expropriation Bill, that we are seeing that it's causing a whole lot of controversy that is happening throughout our country and the nations, seeing that our relationships are not as great as it is. But of course, I will be bringing you the whole question that we are asking you even today, a very simple one. We just want to find out, were your expectations met, right? And of course of this debate that we are seeing, of this political stance that we are seeing, were they met, right? The question that we are asking you today is simply, what do you expect, or what were your expectations from President Cyril Ramaphosa's SoNA address of 2025? You have three options there. You are looking at crime and corruption plans, you are looking at job creation, or also economic recovery, or you are also with those who are saying that they are not sure of what their expectations are for 2025, especially looking at how things have proceeded, looking at how things have worked out, especially within South Africa. Promises after promises and promises, all that. However you view it, go onto our social media platforms, weigh it, view it using the hashtag #TheNewsDesk or hashtag television or hashtag SoNA 2025, right? Let me not waste time. Let's get straight into it. Let's find out what were the big stories of the day as we break down the biggest stories, the biggest headlines of the day with no filter, and of course giving you the facts as always. Without wasting time, here is the Thursday edition of the NewsDesk, right here on television, where we inform, impact, and inspire you. Let's dive straight into it, into the big stories of the day. Reporting live from Johannesburg, Soweto, I am Kagiso Sithole. A great pleasure to be in your company this evening as we trickle down everything that has been transpiring, everything that has been making news headlines. It's raining in Johannesburg right now. As you can hear at the background of, my sound there, that there's a lot of raindrops that are happening. But that is not stopping us from having such great conversations that we are going to be having with you this evening, and definitely the stories that we are tracking for you. The first one definitely has to be the President Zuma and Ramaphosa, who are definitely going into battles. As we all know, that another battle bites the dust as former President Jacob Zuma attempts to privately prosecute President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has been officially removed from the High Court role after exhausting every possible legal avenue, from the High Court to the Supreme Court of Appeal and finally the Constitutional Court. Zuma's case has hit a dead end, right? As we all know that Zuma was taking President Cyril Ramaphosa to court upon, everything that has been happening in terms of this deal of his private prosecution, especially knowing what has been happening with the Phala saga that we are seeing there. A whole lot of prosecutions that were sent them, a whole lot of prosecution that were taken there. In order for us to make sense of it all, President Cyril Ramaphosa was being taken to court, and he stood in front of the Parliament Policy Portfolio Committee to kind of give off, what is the whole plan and why was this, deal happening there. As we all know, there was a lot of dollars that were found in his court there, in his house there in the Phala saga. But as it still continues, we are seeing that the decision was read out in a courtroom empty than a stadium during load shedding, with no MK party supporters in sight, just legal teams and a handful of journalists watching history repeat itself. Zuma's counsel admitted defeat and requested that the matter be removed from the road. As we saw that there has been a lot of engagements towards it, and also what is the prosecution going to state into this, and what is it that we are going to be finding out into this, and also what does it mean for us as South Africans, and what does it mean for President Cyril Ramaphosa, and also what does it mean for President Jacob Zuma, as we know that these charges have been brought down, and these charges have been definitely been brought down there in court then. What does this mean? It means that President Cyril Ramaphosa is off the hook again, right? While the MK party faithful will call this a conspiracy rather. Legal experts agree that it was just another delaying tactic in Zuma's long-winded legal battles. As we all know that even today he was in court, all right? He was in court amidst these corruption charges with the group Talis that we all know that they were being persecuted there. A lot of those persecutions that we are seeing in him, another delayed tactic that we are seeing there. But the bigger picture here, or rather the question is, what's the big picture here? Zuma's court drama far from over. The former president still faces corruption trial linked with the infamous arm deal, and the MK party claims this was a deliberate attempt to block him from attending SoNA 2025. But was it really, or was it just another failed legal stunt? As we all know that the MK party has been coming up, bringing a lot of failed stunts, bringing of a lot of legal matters into the court. But definitely we'll be checking those developments. And what is the court judgment there? As we all know so far that the court proceedings and judgment has been held out, and they will be receiving a judgment shorter later within the year. Those developments is what we are going to be tracking for you as the case continues. Then I was trying to get a hold of an audio clip of what happened at the courtroom this afternoon, but due to the rain sound, I don't think that we will be having such a great audio from that deal, but definitely we'll be checking out those informants developments that are happening in court. Let us know your thoughts. Was this a fair ruling or another case of political interference? However you view it, go into our social media platforms using the hashtag #TheNewsDesk, because it is definitely where everything is going down. Conversations are still continuing on the news desk, right? Another story that we are keeping track for you this evening definitely has to be the U.S. Secretary, the State, Marco Rubio, snabs SA's G20 summit and calls it anti-American. As you all know, that the whole week we have been seeing a lot of remarks from the U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that he will not be a part of of funding the African continent, especially South Africa, in a statement saying that there is a lot of corruptions that we're seeing. Even today, we saw a tweet coming out in another move that surprised absolutely no one. The US is at it again. This time around, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has decided he won't be attending the G20 summit in South Africa, citing that he calls it anti-American sentiments from South African government. We also know that now this is everything that Donald Trump has been talking about, and this morning he took out a tweet on X, also formerly known as Twitter. He took out a tweet there that we are seeing there, and Rubio was definitely saying in his tweet that South Africa is doing very bad things. I refuse to attend a summit that promotes solidarity, equality, and sustainability. These are just code words from anti-Americanism. He has announced that he will not be attending the G20 summit in Johannesburg, as I did mention that expropriating private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, and also using the G20 as something else. I wonder what are your thoughts around this, because there has been a whole lot of tensions between the US and as well as South Africa. Showing firstly the President of the United States, Donald Trump, coming out and saying that they will not be working into this. But now we are also seeing the fact that even the Secretary of the State, Rubio will not be attending this, and this kind of causes a lot of tension right onto this. Now let's break this down. South Africa is hosting the G20 under the theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability, which apparently is now a threat to American values. What's next? Will they also ban Ubuntu? Because it seems as if Americans are now going against South African policies that we are seeing in our state and in our nation, and it's definitely what we are seeing. And definitely in this case, we should be driven by the outcomes that we are seeing, that definitely our policies are being taken out into not definitely meeting the positions that we are supposed to be meeting. And also, what does it say about future investments in the country of South Africa? And as always, Twitter was having a lot of remarks into this and different mixed reaction upon what the US Secretary had to say, and some of South Africans were actually agreeing with what he said. Ron Smith says this administration is it's driven by pettiness, and you don't want to let Elon Musk go. It's president who refused to give license over. And it also goes to show that there is a whole lot of things that are happening there, a whole lot of sentiments that people are sharing around this. At Njabulo saying that the response or the purpose for this is the SA expropriation bill, which is fair, but You are fine with Trump proposing the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza for US control. Pure hypocrisy. This is probably about BRICS and the ICJ case against Israel. Again, let's not forget the point that President Trump wanted the Palestinians to be moved from Gaza and go to Somalia or into Egypt. And he's one person that has been raising a lot of concerns about immigration in his country and also building the border there in his country. But we are seeing that it is not happening. And we are seeing that he is now forcing immigration in other African countries, and it does not make sense into his recovery plans into that. My sentiments go with you, Njabulo, there. And then at Stop Socialist, says here that great decision by Secretary Rubio, standing up for American values and refusing to legitimize with South Africa's questionable actions, right? He's agreeing definitely with the Secretary of the UN. They're saying that definitely this is something that he has to do, standing for the values of the country and standing for the values of the Americans there, that it's something that is questionable, especially for South Africans. And also what we are looking into here, it's the fact that as much as they are saying that it is questionable for South Africans and all that, but let's come to this. I feel that South African governments needs to put diplomacy into this, go back and to making sure that there are actions that are being taken, and also lobby and also go into conversation with the Oval House and the White House to making sure, because we definitely want these investments, we definitely want these finances coming back into us. Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Minerals and Energy Resources, was definitely reiterating the fact that if they do not want to give us funding, we will not definitely give them the resources that they need to grow the economy. But at this point, we don't have to I feel that we do not have to get into the pettiness of this issue, but we need to sort out our differences as both countries, as both nations, because we definitely need to drive this economy for not only the African continent, but also for the whole world at large, and definitely moving those parts. We'll definitely be tracking those developments ahead of the G20 summit that will continue to prevail there in our country, Johannesburg, South Africa, in the year 2025, especially this year. Our eyes are looking forward into that G20 summit. Right. Another story that we are tracking for you definitely needs to be the EFF. Going back to the SoNA that we are tracking for you, the EFF says that they are definitely not going to be bringing disruptions, and that is what we have saw so far in the SoNA. They say that except this year, there's something different. The EFF has promised that not to disrupt the SoNA 2025, and no red barrett overalls flying on the chamber, no security dragging out MPs, no walkouts, just good behavior, as they say. As we all know that the EFF has always been disrupting, these sittings of the SoNA debate. But we saw that as far as now, the President Cyril Ramaphosa is still addressing the nation, and there's no disruptions from the red barrett. Tambo, who is the EFF spokesperson, Sinawo Tambo, saying that the EFF wants to take a mature approach to holding the president accountable, focusing on critics instead of physical clashes. Now, this is a quite shift from the last year when they boycotted SoNA entirely after several MPs were suspended from disruptions in 2023. Right, we saw this happening, but here's an interesting thing that things are getting interesting. Is the EFF genuinely evolving as the political force, or is just another strategy to win voters? Right, as we need to remember that next year South Africa is going for the local government elections, the 2026 local government election, and the EFF needs to prove it's more than just a party of theatrics. It's also about this new era. So this new era is also of a refined EFF, or are they just waiting for the perfect moment to drop another mic? As we all know that the EFF has been causing a whole lot of distraction, has been causing a whole lot of disturbances that we are seeing in all these years. But this year we are seeing a whole different EFF. As I did mention earlier, is this a stance of them trying to definitely win voters, as we all know that the 2026 local government elections are approaching and they are coming, and they are trying to win voters, as we all know that in the 2024 national government, national elections, they didn't do well. We saw them being moved from the third seat to the fourth seat by the new kids on the block, the MK party. And we've seen that there have been a lot of tensions, a lot of people dropping out from the EFF, and recently Mtsweni-Tsipane dropping out of the EFF and saying that he will not definitely be part of the proceedings. But EFF definitely taking a different approach this year. They want to act differently. They do not want their members to be dragged out of the parliament. They do not want their members in this new approach. I mean, it's definitely something that they want to actually see a whole new range, a whole new difference into this. As I did mention in the poll question that I asked you earlier, what were your expectations on President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address? What he mentioned raise your expectation? Did what he mentioned raise the ability of what you wanted to hear, especially in the fact of job creation, the economic recovery, crime and anti-corruption plans that they might have? President Cyril Ramaphosa also stating some of the fact that their main focus is to grow the economy, for making sure that they are going to create more jobs. And this is something that it's been reiterated for years in and years out, and a lot of people are asking a question to saying that, will this even work out even this year? What are your expectations? What do you think? Has the EFF finally changed its ways, or they're just playing a long game into making sure that into the 2026 local government election they will definitely act differently, or they will actually move in a different platform and a different tenure to try to make sure that they win votes, especially within the the EFF region, and also within the country, in making sure that they regain their third seat again, right? This is the spokesperson of the EFF was speaking with Newsroom Africa's Vuyo Mvoko, and this is what he had to say ahead of the 2025 State of the Nation address. Let's listen into what he had to say in some of these proceedings.
Last year, on this administration, that our approach, we're going to hold the executive accountable. We're not going to move from there. We're going to attend committees. We're going to listen to what Cyril is going to say to us today, and then next week we'll be here to respond to whatever that is going to say to us today and to the nation, which we know that is just going to be another empty promises. He's got no capacity to lead this country. We said that in 2018 when he became a president, to say he wanted to be a president as early as 1994 when he boycotted the Mandela inauguration. But he doesn't know what he wants to do with presidency. And 6 years later, was indicated he doesn't know what he wants.
All right, that's the EFF spokesperson. They're just reiterating the fact that this year they are going to take a different approach. This year they're going to work on a different approach in terms of making sure that they are going to account or ask for accountability from the president. But my question is, do you think that the EFF has finally changed its ways, or they are just playing a long game in this, in making sure that they win votes? As we all know that the 2026 local government elections are coming next year, and they definitely were moved by the MK party from the third seat there, and now they're trying to shift focus into making sure that this year they will not be moved, as the president did in his speech, in a very quite a present movement and a right resemble movement that they did, and the president was able to set out the speech as well. All right, we'll give you the the post analysis of the 2025 State of the Nation address with our political analyst Tsepo King Mazola in a short while. But let me bring you definitely the poll question that we are asking you this evening, and it definitely has to be centered around the State of the Nation address. Were your expectations met by President Cyril Ramaphosa? What do you expect from President Cyril Ramaphosa's SoNA speech address? You had options there. It was crime, anti-corruption, or you were looking at job creation, was as it's part of some of the remarks that he has centered out there. Also, again, or you were looking at the economic recovery, is as also he did mention that that is one of their first priority as the government, to saying that they want to grow the economy to make sure that there is job creation. Or you didn't have expectation ahead of the State of the Nation address. However you view it, go into all our social media platforms, go into our stories, and make sure that you vote. I'll bring you those results just before we wrap up the Thursday edition of the NewsDesk right here on television, where we inform, impact, and inspire you. All right, let's move things now into the red carpet of the 2025 State of the Nation address. In other news, as I'm joined by Somerset, our lifestyle editor. Let's go in other news. Indeed, that time of the evening where we shift focus and look into the 2025 State of the Nation address, and of course taking a look at the fact what has been happening within the red carpet. Who's who attended the session? What were they wearing? There has been a whole lot of outfits that I've been seeing of a lot of ministers and people in the cabinet there who are wearing a lot of things that I do not understand. But we ditch the politics and focus on a lighter note of SoNA, which is the fashion, the fair, and who turned their heads on the red carpet. In some sense, join me. Samu, very good evening to you, and it's a great pleasure to always have you a part of the session here. And as we look into the fashion and the fair, and actually who turned heads at the red carpet of the SoNA, good evening to you. Are you able to hear me? All right. I see that we are having some network glitches there with Samusen there, but we'll try to re-establish that connection with him in a short while. But to focus on the glitz, glamour, and unexpected moments of the SoNA 2025 red carpet, because let's be honest, before we even get to the president's speech, it's all about who wore what, who served, and who flopped. And as of course, Somerset is going to try to give us a sense of it all here as we try to re-establish that connection. One of the outfits that I've saw so far has to be Refile Mtsweni-Tsipane, who is the National Council of Provinces chairperson. Even last year she kind of wore something that was like a long jacket, black and white, but this year she went off with a red number. And I wonder, what were your thoughts on it, on the fashion? And of course, proudly South African, coming out there to saying that this year we want government officials and officials to wear locally in order for them to make sure that we promote proudly South African, and also we promote fashion of local designers. Okay, I've seen that we have established that connection with Somerset. Samu, welcome to the news desk. Samu, are you able to hear me? All right. We are still having that network glitch. I'm having a problem with hearing Samu, but we will re-establish that connection with you as soon as that line is clear. But just before that, I was just reiterating the fact that The MP's Refilwe Mtsipane there was wearing a red number, which looked good on her. She's always the queen of wearing nice outfits, especially when we look into the members of parliament, what they usually wear, what they usually put in place. I mean, there has been a whole lot of discoveries, a whole lot of people wearing a whole lot of things, but definitely that red number is one thing that we should be on the lookout for. That red number showed a whole lot of instance, a whole lot of her presence, as we all know that she tries to wear that red number as it is on the line. Another person that I saw on the red carpet has to be definitely Didiza, Madam Speaker, in her black number there, holding a bag there. I wonder what some sense thoughts are around this number. Very local, a very casual, very decent, right? As you know that this red carpet moment of State of the Nation address has to be something that we are looking into formalizing and finalizing, that these red carpet moments has to be best dressed, right? You need to take out your best outfit in making sure that we cover the state of the nation. And for being Madam Speaker, she wore this red number, or rather the black number that we are seeing there, and in that black number, very detailed in it, very short, and not quite very glamorous as it is, but that is the Speaker of Parliament, Didiza there, wearing some of her extravagant black number there that is going into the state of the nation as the president was preparing to address the province. I'm trying to re-establish that line with some sense, but I see that the network and the weather is not as great as we are seeing. Another person that we saw moving into the red carpet in another number has to be Papa Penny. Papa Penny, yeah, going with that blue and gold suit. And we saw that gold suit definitely had to be with a lot of bling going there. He is definitely wearing a lot of gold there, and you all know Papa Penny to be someone that is glamorous, okay, that will never leave a fashion statement without a doubt, right? We are going to be joined by our political analyst Tepo King Mazola in a short while to just give off a sense of the speech. We're just going through some of the red carpet moments and what people have been wearing. I'm trying to re-establish that line with some sense, but I see that the network is still not good. But Papa Penny there wearing a blue and a gold suit there. Papa Penny always as extravagant as people would say. Papa Penny always looking as extravagant, and never missed a moment. I think someone that knows what the state of the nation red carpet is all about. You need to be extravagant. You need to take out your best numbers out of that wardrobe in order for you to give off the best of the best at this, right? Another person that I spotted on the red carpet has to be definitely the Minister of Agriculture and the DA leader, Johnston Hazen, there with his family there, as you saw that with his black of navy bluish tie, navy blue suit and a green white striped green and navy blue striped tie there, with the wife wearing a green number there matching with the handbag, a clutch bag, and the daughter there on the side with the yellow clutch bag, as we saw, or as we seeing that he's wearing also Proudly South African. As you all know that Proudly South Africa did mention that this year the theme was wear local at the SoNA, meaning all MPs and guests were encouraged to wear 100% South African designed outfits. And let me tell you, some people understood the assignment, as we saw Johnston Hazen there with his navy suit there with a touch of green, matching with his wife there on the side and the daughter there on the sidelines wearing a black number that we are seeing. Okay, I see the network is a bit established. Samu is here. Samu, good evening and welcome to the news desk.
Good evening, good people. Good evening. I am so sorry about the glitch. It's our weather and the network. I don't know if it's a Wi-Fi or what, but yeah, we have to give you the scoop. about the SoNA. I had to pop in.
Definitely. Before you popped in, I've already looked at what Refilwe Mtsweni was wearing, and also what Togo Didiza was wearing, and also what Papa Beni, and just now what John Steenhuisen was wearing. What were some of your highlights on the red carpet?
Well, you know me and critics. You may call me a bad person. I know some of y'all will say I'm negative and what. But was this Togo with the red number?
No, it was Refilwe Mtsweni, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces.
He looks like she was stuck in a couch or
Oh wow.
something.
Oh, some saint. Okay.
I had to take it there. And then this is Madam Speaker looks like she's going to a Good Friday conference at Greece or something. Sorry to say that. Papa
A
Penny
churchy
really,
number it
really,
was.
hey, yeah, it looks like a churchy number. She looked like a usher or a counselor at church. And then, oh, Papa Penny always gives us spice, guys. Papa Penny is always spicy. Papa Penny is always ready. I didn't even know that Papa Penny was part of the parliament.
Yeah, Papa Penny is the member of parliament for the MK party. He was sworn in, and a short days later. Right, I see that there is still network glitches that we are seeing there from Samusent. We have to leave it there with Samusent, but definitely just giving his 2 cents on the red carpet scenarios that we're seeing, what people were wearing, who was who, and we know that the former president of the country, Thabo Mbeki, Kgalema Motlanthe, and as well as a lot of dignitaries who were there. The former deputy president, David Mabuza, was also there, quite surprisingly. He was also there at the SoNA. One of the member of the DAs was there, Nodata rather. He was there also wearing a gray suit there, a gray number there. That was cute and that was fresh and that was definitely hitting hard and hitting some of those pleasures. Quite neat, quite a suit that will definitely be something that is of great importance, and seeing that number looking as great as possible. President Cyril Ramaphosa has definitely finished taking out his State of the Nation address. This is some of the moments that are happening there outside the precinct at the City Hall in Cape Town. As we see the MK party, people are out there chanting, singing in their soldier regalia. They are wearing some of their soldier regalias there. We are seeing some of them walking out and singing and just celebrating what the president has definitely sent out. We are seeing dignitaries walking out singing and also celebrating what President Cyril Ramaphosa had to say. The MK parties are still out there. I am looking at the live proceedings that are happening at the Parliament channel. If you haven't seen some of the State of the Nation address and also proceedings there, you definitely want to pop over there. We'll be stepping into the political view with our political analyst Tsepo King Mazola to just give us a sense of what the president has said and what the president had to say about it there. We are looking at the fact that some dignitaries who were there were definitely talking, and Velemisa Hlabisa also sent out some of his remarks. I think let's just listen into what Velemisa Nkosini Hlabisa had to say.
Paper review, as the president has tabled it, that it needs to change the setup of our country, and the funding model of our municipalities is what is going to make our municipalities work, because more resources must be injected to our municipalities so that they become functional. That is where economy must be injected. That is where investment must be done. Once they are functional, there will be an attraction point for investment in our country.
Definitely there. That's Velemisenkosi Hlabisa, the Minister of Culture here in South Africa. He was just reiterating the point that the president has said that they are going to focus also in making sure that they renew the funding model for municipalities that are struggling, right? The president was just reiterating the fact that they're going to work into that. And obviously the culture minister has to be a part of this in making sure that the municipalities are being run properly and smoothly and done, right? Let me not talk much about it and bring in someone that knows more about this and who is definitely tracking it down, who is our resident political analyst, Tsepo King Mazola, to look at what is this, the serious business, right? Looking at the fact that President Cyril Ramaphosa has definitely taken out the State of the Nation address. Let's now break it down and unpack it. What were the policy promises and whether can they hold the weight? And not forgetting that it was the first for the government of national unity. Let's step over into the political view. Right, it's now time for the political view, an extended version special where we break down the SoNA 2025 with hard-hitting analysis, sharp insights, and real talk about what the president said and what he didn't say, and most importantly, what does this mean for us all as South Africans? And joining me is our resident political analyst, Tsepo King Mazola, as always, ready to separate fact from fiction. Tsepo, good evening and welcome to the news desk.
Use it.
All good, all good. I know that you have been tracking down the State of the Nation address. But before we get into all these details, let's start over with the overall impression. Did the President Cyril Ramaphosa deliver a compelling SoNA?
So according to me, KG, the president, I think he tried to do his best. This State of the Nation address was truly presidential. But unfortunately, I doubt many South Africans actually understood the nitty-gritties because he was really speaking about very complex issues, how or the direction that the country needs to take, and I think many South Africans might only understood him when he was referring to issues relating to crimes, because sit down, study what he said, go through some of these policies, and make sure that he understands or she understands fully well.
Quite interesting developments that we are seeing in that, and looking at the fact that it was the first State of the Nation address under the government of national unity. We will not hear a lot of criticism, especially from the DA and other parties that are part of the government of national unity this year. Your overall remarks in, some of the priorities that they've set. I mean, they talked about number one, the growing the economy for creating jobs.
Oh yes, KG. The president touched on three priorities. One is indeed the one on job creation, the issue of poverty alleviation, and also building a capable, ethical developmental stage. Those are the priorities of our government for this coming year. And I think President then expanded on that, what demand. He touched on a whole lot of issues. I think he started with explaining what you are talking to, the government of national unity, very complex, tricky arrangement that we find ourselves as a country. But indeed, I think just to start with your first comment, that I don't think we must not even anticipate a situation where you have a lot of criticism, especially coming from many political parties that were previously in the opposition benches. They are now part of government, and they will have to they will have to make sure that all these policies are actually being implemented. Perhaps maybe you will find a few ways there and there from the EFF and MK, but I doubt that they will also make the noise that we are used to.
definitely no noise. Even the EFF coming out to saying that they are going to act differently, and that's what we saw at the State of the Nation address, that they actually they were not dragged out, they were not complaining, they were definitely taking a different stance. Do you think, Tshepo, that this is them preparing themselves for the 2026 local government elections to try to bring over a different perspective of how the country has viewed them? Because for years they've been disrupting the State of the Nation address.
You know, KG, Einstein, well, according to history books, we are told that Einstein once said insanity is doing the same thing all over again and expecting different results. And I'm thinking with the likes of Floyd leaving, who was the mastermind behind many of the policies in the EFF, the likes of Ndlozi, very articulate, Dokotela, and many other fighters. I think Julius is now starting to, he finds himself in a very tough position, and will definitely need to rethink how he does things. The issue of actually making noise is indeed in the first year and the second year. We know that we had the issues of state capture, all the challenges relating to the former president, Jacob Zuma, and things like that. I think at that time it made sense, but right now I don't think we need anyone else who will actually come on and make noise, unless maybe it's youth structures. I think young people can't be allowed to really make that noise. But as for MPs, members of parliament, members of provincial legislators, including members of local councils, our councillors, I don't think in any of their sittings there is time for people to be throwing tantrums and making a lot of noise. I think what needs to happen is that everyone needs to come on board and then say, according to us as an organization, this is the direction that we think the local government, the municipality needs to take, the provincial government needs to take, or the national government needs to take. So I don't see them ever making noises going forward.
Definitely. I think that they definitely needed to take a different approach at this, especially now that the elections are coming. But President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke a lot, and he covered a lot in his speech. In his speech, he talked about the water and electricity and all that. But before we get into what were your key, takeaways from this speech, I want us to just listen to some of the remarks that he made in his speech earlier.
A state with leaders who are prepared to serve our people with complete dedication, and public servants who are ethical, skilled, and properly qualified. To achieve these objectives, we are strengthening the role of the Public Service Commission in the appointment of key people who direct the affairs of our state, such as Directors General, Deputy Directors General, Chief Executive Officers of SOEs and board members and other senior positions.
All right. Let's get into what are your key takeaways? Because he's said a lot, Tshepo. What were your key takeaways?
One, KG, I will start with on education. I think the president didn't mince his words. I think the past few weeks after the march by the DA, the president said we'll give them a few weeks, and I think today he made it clear that what is his expectation of the minister, to say the minister must make sure that the Basic Education Law Amendment Act is fully implemented so that all South Africans can actually get access to education, and including that the minister must then prepare those standards and norms. Standards and norms will then refer to a documentation that will then entails how operations ought to happen in the Department of Education, from nationally right to or down to our schools, how the SGPs and SMTs needs to do things. I think that's one. Then two, on health, KG, there is this 1.1 million, what do they call it, campaign where we need to retain many people to care. US President Donald Trump was very clear that this is no longer going to fund our HIV/AIDS program, and that 17% used to do a lot. So I think the president has indeed touched on that. I think that's one of the key takeaways to say we need to start being self-sustained. We need to self-fund as a nation so that we do not find ourselves in a situation where we actually rely on other countries like it was happening previously. Because once somebody decides on wake up one day to say, oh, I'm no longer going to fund you, then that means the newsroom will no longer, the news desk will no longer operate, KG. So I think that was the second one that I felt that it was very important. Thirdly, KG, the issue of spatial planning, the housing project, that he has actually mandated this hijack buildings. I think that was the third takeaway that I felt it is very key. 4, KG, the issue of the freight, the logistics, and our train system. I think it is very key. When you visit countries like, or you visit continents like Europe, KG, they rely a lot on the railway system. In as much as they will tell us, no, buy cars, that like in Germany, they will produce some of the best cars in the world, your Mercedes-Benz. But I will tell you that they actually rely on trains, and the president saying that they are going to make sure that they fund PRASA and make sure that the PRASA have the expertise that is needed so that it can actually be functional again. I think that's one of the best things that needs to happen. The president needs to make sure that they safeguard the process. They just do not allow or leave that process with the minister. So if we can actually, the president and all of us, we can actually make sure that that process goes according to the bill that the president actually touched on. I think that's one of the things or our country will be in a better position, that because what that means is that we would be able to take some of the exports, take whatever the minerals, whether agricultural products to many countries across the continents and across the globe. I think that's the 4th takeaway, KG. Then 5th, the issue of governance, KG. We know that there's a nation who have been having serious challenges when it comes to governance, from local government, our councillor, top councillors, right around up to presidential and what do they call it, cabinet. And when we are and when the president spoke about governance, I felt especially the issue of local government. You'll know that I always make mention of this fact that people do not live in province. Well, how can I say, superficially, or how can I put it? People do not really live in provinces, KG. People live in communities. They stay in municipalities. Provinces is just an abstract, something that we just designed for operational purposes. But what we know is that everything happens inside the hut, inside the community somewhere. Even if when the president wants to launch a campaign or they build the hospitals that was making mention of, those hospitals will be built in a certain hut, in a certain community. So when we strengthen systems relating to local government, I think a lot of things will start happening. I hope it won't be lip service. He will make sure that he mandates the minister, he mandates all the premiers to make sure that they safeguard this process, the bill, the act that will actually be enabled very soon, because the issue of what do they call it, KG? The multi-governmental relations is very important. And for the longest of time, we haven't been practicing that as a nation. And that's why we have so many problems. We have councillors blaming the mayor, and both councillors and the mayor are councillors and they sit in one council city. You'll have MPs blaming their fellow cabinet ministers and the presidents without actually not holding them accountable. So I think moving forward with the enactment of some of these acts, they will start holding each other accountable and make sure that we are a government that is at work. Instead of making a lot of complaints, they should actually hold each other accountable, take each other to task, and actually do not wait for wrong things to happen so that you can actually complain at the next State of the Nation address. If a president or a certain minister is not doing something correctly now, well, that thing needs to be fixed now instead of actually waiting another 12 months so that we can score some cheap political point scoring. I think that was the fifth. The last one, KG, the one of the revised reform on state-owned enterprises. That's one of the best things that could actually happen to this country. We know that the state of many of our SOEs right now, it is not inspiring confidence at all. But if we are able to then fix the SOEs, there is that energy plan that TESCOM will be dealing with. Many other state-owned entities will also be presenting on their plans. I think that's one of the best things that will actually be happening. You know that everywhere you go, when they talk about South Africa, they talk about this. The heart of the African continent, that strong country that is actually taking all the blows for the African continent. And if we mess up in South Africa, that possibly means the entire province, the entire continent won't go anywhere. I felt those are the some of the things that I felt that they are very important, especially for the nation at this current stage. Lastly, the issue of voter KG, that one cannot actually be overemphasized. I'm happy that despite what we are seeing on the media, that the president is actually committing that they will be engaging with the government of Lesotho. The second phase of the Lesotho Highlands project will definitely take on, including the agency that will then ensure that we have enough water as a nation, including our neighboring countries. Quality drinking water is very vital, KG. We know, especially at this time of the year, it's summer. Many of our provinces, deep rural areas, do not have quality drinking water, unlike most of us in the city of Johannesburg. But when you go to many other, including the capital city, that one doesn't have quality drinking water as things stands, although the mayor there is doing her best to make sure that he turns everything around. So I'm just saying some of these things have been happening, and I'm happy that there is a plan that will then be implemented. I just hope, KG, that all these things won't be lip service. They will truly be implemented for the betterment of this country.
Yeah, I was about to say that hopefully that all these strategies, yes, we can talk about the policy promises and all that, but if they don't hold weight, it's as far as if it's just paper and ink just being wasted there. But you spoke about something that, you know, that they need to keep the unity, and that's the elephant in the room because of the GNU it's divided on its own. The DA as well is, you know, against the Bella, the NHI, and now also the land expropriation bill that has come, you know, into state. Do you think that the president is actually in charge, or this GNU is slowly crumbling down?
As things stand, you know, sometime around July last year, the ANC made a press briefing. I think it was led by Zuwo Kudlimbi, who was the then acting spokesperson, including Makur, and they were saying that, or including Febi Porter as well, and they were saying from where they are, they feel that as the ANC, they have a firm grip through the president on the GNU. As things stands, everyone goes to the president to say, President, although even the DA will then say what they want to say every now and then, but you can actually tell that the President Ramaphosa is actually in charge of that GNU. You can check from the number of ministers and deputy ministers that he has actually deployed there or put into his cabinet. From around 40% that the ANC got, you can see that is the man that everyone wants to work with. hopefully will make sure that he continue to push policies that are pro-South Africans, and that will minimize the tensions that have been there. I think many a times the challenges that we always find in Parliament is due to policies that will then seem to not be speaking to the majority of South Africans, policies that speaks to the minority in the country, and that will obviously cause a whole lot of fights. You'll find your likes of the EFF fighting in Parliament because they will then feel that no, these policies are not speaking to our people. The PAC, even though they have those small numbers, they will then voice out their opinions on what is not going well. But with everyone now working together as a team, I think would go somewhere, Kichi. Growing up, we've always been told that the united, barring unity in action, when you are united, you are able to actually prosper, and when you are divided, you can actually conquer anything. You will never progress.
Yeah.
So I think that's what is happening with the GNU, and hopefully they will keep it this way.
Yeah, definitely they need to keep, unity, because I mean, if they're not, as you just reiterated right now, if they are divided, what does it mean for us as ordinary citizens? That means we're also going to be divided amongst ourselves. But you were talking about also that he needs to create policies for South Africa that don't cause quite much tension. And this week we've been seeing that there's been a whole lot of tension between the US and the South African region. And also we've seen that this growing tension between Donald Trump and South Africa is causing a whole lot of things. Donald Trump accusing South Africa of anti-American policies and cutting off aid for foreign companies and all that. And now today we also saw that the US Secretary of State Rubio refuses to attend the G20 summit in South Africa. How serious is this, Tsepo, and could this impact, or how could this rather impact our economy and also international relations?
One, KG, we have to say that President Donald Trump is a madman on a mission. And I will repeat, that one is a madman on a mission. He is the face of capital in the world, and he will make sure that the capital gets everything that it wants. That's one thing that is actually good about him. Even though it is not good for all of us, but it is good that at least we know what it will be the stance of the USA on this and that policy, or on this and that whether it comes to funding and things like that. At least we know that what is his stance. We know that you'll tell the African leaders that no, you have minerals in your own country. Why are you not developing your own countries? Why are you taking these minerals and selling them at the back door so that you and your family can get wealthy? Why are you taking your families or your children to schools in European and the US, including for healthcare services, and not actually in your own countries? Does it mean you hate your countries that much Does it mean that you hate your country that much that you do not intend to invest anything in it? I think that's one. But secondly, I see one of the comments that they're saying US government is bullying everyone as usual. And indeed, it is true. USA, for the longest of time, they've been given, or we've been having what they call a unipolar world where the US was controlling everything. And right now, through the likes of BRICS, we are creating a multilateralism, a multipolar world where everyone can actually play a role. You'll know that China, for instance, has the leading economy in the world right now. Your Russia is up there, your India is up there. All of them, they are BRICS countries. So the contradictions in the world are actually deepening, and Donald Trump is assisting us to move speedily to that process. It was forever coming, but at least with President Donald Trump in charge, we are getting there quicker, because they will obviously try to bully everyone, and all these other countries will then see a need to also trade amongst themselves instead of waiting for the USA for everything. When the USA says jump, they will then jump. For instance, in South Africa, we've always had Denel. Denel used to produce aircraft at world. We have decided as a country not to invest much on Denel. what is happening. You have Donald Trump and the US dictating everything to all of us. So I think what he's doing is will actually remind our leaders to invest in our own countries, in their own countries. Indeed, we might, as South Africa, receive those subprimal sanctions from the US, but it gives us an opportunity to actually look towards strengthening the African SADC, strengthening the African continent, the intercontinental trade agreements, then also look to the east for some of trade agreements. I think those are some of the things that will definitely happen in the nearby future. Our leaders will actually dragging their feet. Obviously, for now, we'll feel the impact and the implication of whatever that is currently happening. But in the long run, it will actually benefit us as the African continent. That is my belief. If all African leaders stay true to their countries and they stay true to the continent, then we won't need even the US aid, you won't need PEFA, you won't need anything from US or any European country. We just need to make sure that we utilize everything that is there and we strengthen our relations or trade agreements or trade relations as a continent and as a country, and including as a bloc.
Definitely. Definitely, we need to make sure that we're keeping our economy striving, especially as the African continent. I don't know what is Trump, as you did mention that he is a crazy man with a mission, but these threats, are just causing a whole lot of commotion. I wonder what's next. Will now they want to ban Ubuntu, or I don't know, because we are setting these policies for us based on the history that a country has been set, and now he's saying that they are anti-Americanism. Another thing that the president said when he started off his speech. You can continue.
Before we actually even pass on that particular issue, he stressed that I actually causing confusion. I was telling some friends of mine that in actual fact, I was going through the blue app there. I was in Twitter, just trying to check the understanding of many of our fellow citizens in the country, and I then realized one of the things I think the president was supposed to actually make mention of, that perhaps the speaker in parliament will then touch on this issue that I want to raise right now, to say one of the things that needs to happen as a country, we need a serious program on civic education. Many of South Africans do not know what is happening in their country. Anything that is being said will just be taken as the gospel truth. Donald Trump was speaking about things that are not even happening in South Africa. Surely the only thing that he didn't mention was that if you go to South Africa, you'll see elephants and giraffes moving everywhere and things like that.
Because clearly that's what they think Africa is all about.
Elon Musk is actually misleading him, we don't know. But what we know is that everything that he was saying, Donald Trump was indeed highly misled, and obviously was trying to also bully everyone into thinking what he's saying is the truth. But I'm happy that the president did remain firm and spoke on behalf of us to say, no, here we have our own sovereignty, and as South Africans will decide what needs to happen in our own country. And I think that's what all countries in the world needs to do.
Definitely. This misinformation and disinformation, we just don't have to be blurbing things just because we want to make a statement. As we are pushing closer to wrapping up our conversation, one of the things that President Cyril Ramaphosa stated out when he started his address was that we are gathered here as we mourn the 14 South African soldiers killed in the DRC, which has been another thing that has been causing a whole lot of controversy within our country. And these bodies were supposed to be brought back. I think it was they were supposed to be brought back yesterday, and there's been a delay again. And the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Mtsweni-Tsipane, was facing the Parliament Portfolio Committee this week and answering certain questions around that. And we also saw Kagame, just taking out and threatening a fight with South Africa. What are your thoughts on what has been happening with the DRC and our soldiers that have been deployed there?
One KG, according to Richard, I forgot the name of the agency that actually rates the armies in the world. They will tell you that we're number 4 in the African continent, and I think we're number 5 for 2025. We're in the top 8, if not the top 40 of the best armies in the world for 2025. Obviously, previously we used to be part of the top 10 or top 20, but that was because at that time, including during the era of apartheid government, we were on a very offensive government, always fighting, and now we're a government that is leading peace across the world. And unfortunately, when you are part of peacekeeping missions, you do lose some of your soldiers in the battlefield. Possibly because of crossfire. You'll know from the 14 soldiers, I think 6 of them, they didn't die in the peacekeeping mission. They actually, what the M23 did, they bombed some of the places next to the capital city, and they were there to buy some refreshments that they needed in their military base. So they died with citizens of the DRC. But what needs to happen in DRC, we need the entire African continent, the entire countries in the continent to actually come together and make sure that there is some sense of stability in that country. We know that DRC has serious minerals beneath their soils that will change the face of how we're doing things in the world. The president was speaking about the economies and opportunities of the future. That's what it is there. I know the Deputy Minister for Trade, Uzuko, was earlier yesterday, in actual fact, engaging with a few countries on how best can South Africa play a role, noting the central role of South Africa in the continent. How best can we utilize South Africa in these trade relations, whether through transporting some of these minerals, how to make sure that we have industries in the country that will turn those cobalt and other minerals into something that can actually be utilized. So the conflict in the DRC is precisely about the minerals that are there. And unfortunately, and if truth be told, is that the African leaders, the USA and European leaders, and are part of that thing. They are just trying to milk the country dry. That's why the conflict won't end anytime soon. We need leaders that are actually firm in that eastern part of DRC that will make sure that we get there and make sure that we eliminate some of these things. We know that they are saying the issue of tribalism is the root cause of what is happening there. But the reality is that all the fights in the world have always been about one thing: power and money. And that's why the conflict there persists. So if we can actually try to make sure that we minimize or we ensure that all African leaders, I think after the SADC meeting that was held this past week, SADC needs to then engage these other continental bodies in the other bodies in the continent to see how best to make sure that we engage in this thing and the conflict stops. Because if it doesn't stop, it might actually land into our country in the nearby future. We saw what happens in Mozambique. At some point, we had some fights in Tanzania and Angola. So if we do not, they always say, if you do not stop some of these things when they are happening to your neighbor, at some point these things will definitely be in your doorsteps. But lastly, Kechi, on the issue of the 14 soldiers, I think it's just unfortunate what happened. We know even in Kar some few years back, was it 2013 or so, we lost a few soldiers that were not actually engaged in combat, but in a peacekeeping mission, trying to make sure that the citizens of that particular country are actually protected. I think that's that's the central role that many of our soldiers, as in when they go, actually not actually being mentioned in the newspapers as well, is that obviously those that are owning newspapers, they have their own narrative. That's why they are not sharing the entire information, or they will just sell us misinformation. The number of rebels that our soldiers managed to put down, more than 500, according to the stats and the reports that we actually received. Even I think when SNDF is ready to disclose the entire information, that will be some of the things that will actually be mentioned to say, no, where our soldiers are actually positioned, their base is closer to not the site where the fight has been ensuing, but their base is actually closer to some of the communities in that eastern region of DRC. So they were there protecting these citizens. So, we have to move and go to these other places so that they do not actually advance. Because I think one of the things that is not actually being mentioned is that our soldiers, including those that are part of that UN mission, they were trying to stop the M23 rebels from advancing towards where the communities are staying. If they are there in the forest and whatsoever, we're saying, no, it's fine until we find and we get all these leaders to sit down and talk. It's fine where they are placed for now, because we do not want to find ourselves being find as if we are on the offensive or on the defensive or any side whatsoever. But they let them not get closer to where the citizens of DRC are staying. So those are some of the dynamic problematic issues that the African continent is actually faced with, and the sooner we deal with some of those things, the better. But we know that President Paul Kagame was actually not serious that they will actually come and fight with us. That country is so small that we can just send Mapanyaza to go and stop them out. So
you
I
can.
cannot smaller than City of Johannesburg giving us such threats.
I was even thinking of sending all the men from Ewostela. I think they can just cover them up. They can deal
Yeah,
with anything.
probably can just go there and fix that situation then.
All right, so as we wrap up this conversation, what's next for South Africa? I mean, now the State of the Nation address has been taken out. I know that there's going to be debates coming up in the next week, and President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be responding to some of the questions that they have. But what should South Africans expect in the next coming months? Will we see this coming into action? I don't know. What are your thoughts around what to expect in the coming months?
Unfortunately, KG, we are in 2025 moving towards 2026, which is local government elections. So we might just see a lot of politicking coming from different political parties across the spectrum in the country. And that's why a lot of them, even like we were speaking about the EFF, everyone is toning down because they're trying to assess to see if the ANC even can lose its majority. What best practices can we actually put forth so that we can attract into? So we'll find a lot of these political parties playing politics, but hopefully, or one of the things, as the theme of this year's SoNA, nation that is at work, if we can, what we need to do as citizens, we need to make sure that the duty bearers are held accountable. We must not leave that opportunity to hold them accountable, because many times a lot of these things goes wrong because we do not actually hold them accountable. Say, no, it's the president, even when the president is actually misleading or failing, or he doesn't have ideas at all. We're just saying, no, it's the president, forgetting that tomorrow you'll wake up being the president. Like it has happened in the US. We used to know Donald Trump as that person owning, what is that, WWE. Today is the president of the US. So it
Apprentice
might
show, I remember.
Yeah, so it might happen to each and every one of us. Other people will then say, I know Ramaphosa as that young man Otwanko Shawela. The same way in KZN, they will say, no, but we know Zulu as Umtwana Zuma, Upumenkandla, that type of a thing, those that grow up with him. So I'm just saying each and every one of us can actually find themselves in a position of responsibility. So what needs to happen is that there's active citizens, we need to play our role. We need to hold duty bearers accountable. We need to hold everyone accountable so that the correct things can actually be done. the time or the era of just folding hands and allowing things to do as they please. I think there's long past. I'm happy that the current generation of young people, they are very opinionated. They always say what needs to be said. But unfortunately, at some point, because of these low levels of civic education, perhaps they might not know how to address or drive some of these things, because they've always said revolutions everywhere are always led by young people. So I think the future and the current of South Africa is actually lies squarely on us as young people in the country. We need to propel all these politicians to do right by the country, not only them, but also private sector as well. We need to make sure that the business starts coming on board instead of actually profiting, making millions and billions without actually investing back in the country. So those are some of the things that actually needs to happen moving forward. I know your question had actually said, what do I think will happen in the nearby future? But I just wanted to start with what we need to do as citizens. But what will then happen is that some of these policies will actually be implemented, maybe not fully, partially. And because of differences in ideologies and ideological outlook in many of these political parties that are part of the GNU or outside of the GNU as well, you will find every now and then those issues when implementation ought to happen, because they are definitely, we are guaranteed that they're not going to agree about how some of the things will have to unfold. So we'll definitely have to see partial implementation of a lot of these acts. But what is important, or what needs to happen, like I said, is that us as South Africans needs to make sure that we hold them accountable. It is not us who said they must venture into a arrangement of any sort. We just voted and say those that decided that when they want to be politicians and want to go and make laws for us and govern this country, they must just do right by the country, and that's exactly what needs to happen.
Definitely, it's not our fault that they decided to do a national government of unity. All we want is basic services to be delivered and everything to be made partially sure for our country. Thank you so much, Tsepo, for joining us. It's always a great pleasure to discuss everything that is political developments in our country.
Well, thanks for having us, KG. Until we meet again, when next week?
Next week, yes, next week Thursday, definitely. We'll be taking a look at some of the responses and the debate that has been happening post the SoNA that is happening there. All right, so we have come to the end of the Thursday edition and our lot for the week right here on the News Desk. Please make sure that you do go onto all our social media platforms, because that is where the conversation is continuing. Of course, the State of the Nation address. Did President Cyril Ramaphosa meet your expectations, or definitely he went sideways? I don't know. However you view it, please go onto all our social media platforms using the hashtag #TheNewsDesk, hashtag SoNA 2025. Coming up next week, Tuesday, in the lead segment, we are going to shifting our focus on a battle that affects millions worldwide, which is World Cancer Day. In the lead segment, I'll be joined by medical professional and survivors as we discuss the latest advancement in cancer treatment, early detection strategies, and inspirational quotes of resilience. Right, till we meet again on Tuesday next week, have yourselves a magical weekend ahead, and make sure that you keep yourself informed, stay critical, stay crucial on the matters that matter the most in our country. Most importantly, stay hopeful. I am Kagiso Sithole, and this has been the News Desk, where we bring you the stories that matter to you. Stay safe. Till we meet again, look after yourself, and good night. Take care. Bye-bye.